BlackPhone was certainly worth a watch, but despite having an iconic look with an antagonist that has a distinguishable outfit from all the other slashers, somehow I wasn't able to see the Grabber in Dead by Daylight. So the sequel just happened and I have thoughts about it. DBD is a game that will continue expanding with original and licensed content, bringing in all the classic horror villains into one game, dare I say, a museum of horror. The issue though, we don't have any more classics really other than Jason, Predator, who's probably gonna be the January chapter, and the one who just will never enter the trial, It. As I said in a previous video before, DBD has to branch out to other, newer horror licenses eventually, unless they go the consumer route and bring in Darth Vader for the next chapter. Terrifier, Megan, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Thanksgiving, Malignant, and with BlackPhone, just to name a few. With that said, in this video we will talk about BlackPhone, BlackPhone 2, and how it can work in Dead by Daylight. The first movie follows the story of a boy called Finney and how he got taken hostage by a kidnapper who already has made a reputation being responsible for multiple children missing and to never be found alive again. He spent the movie locked in a basement trying to figure a way out with nothing left but a mysterious phone hanging on the wall. On the search for him is his sister Gwen, who has a strong bond to her belief and gains strange visions that give clues to find her brother. Gwen's visions, though, are not the only strange thing here. The phone on the wall starts ringing and reveals itself as a bridge to the restless and forgotten victims of the Grabber that want to help Finney, not just get out, but defeat the Grabber for good. I haven't watched any trailers to the movie. I just gave it a try, not knowing what awaited me, and this was eventually what made this movie click for me. Sure, the Grabber had the vibes of a slasher, but if it was just Finney figuring things out by himself, I'm not sure if I would found this movie really all that catching. Then there is the Grabber himself, his mask changing every time he enters the basement, which is unusual for a slasher, but it's not just done well because they describe the Grabber's mood, but also have different purposes depending on what he had planned for his victim. I found the movie essentially fascinating due to the supernatural aspect being done so well. Same goes for the sequel. Yet, the first movie there I've already played with the thought of a potential DBD chapter. Though the issues are as follows. The Grabber is nothing more than a child kidnapper. Finney and Gwen are children, and it would also not work for a map. At least not for a good one. This place smells like Haddonfield, not gonna lie. No matter how much it spun in the back corner of what I call brain, there was nothing I could see the Grabber doing when getting looped by a Sable TTV on Greenville. So if there wasn't a sequel, it might have just been fine if we got a cosmetic for Trapper as a collab. Because, you know, basement. BlackPhone 2 eventually has led me to dropping on what I was working on and make this video. In the end of the first movie, the Grabber was found dead in his basement, completely annihilated by Finney, who let him have a chat with his victims. Yet in a world where the supernatural exists, and the first movie being an overall well-received hit, it was foreseeable that this wasn't the last time Finney has to pick up the phone to know that his childhood trauma makes a comeback from hell. The sequel gives us a somewhat of a mix of A Nightmare on Elm Street and any type of exorcist horror. Where do I f***ing start with this? BlackPhone 2 elevates the creepiness factor, giving us visuals that I only know from analog horror. Gives Gwen even more spotlight, like she pretty much is the protagonist this time, and makes the Grabber even more terrifying. Now teenagers, Finney and Gwen deal each on their own with the conclusion of the first movie. Both outcasts, Gwen known as the weird religious kid, whilst Finney wants to just bury and forget everything. Things get a little out of hand as Gwen begins to have visions again. This time, though, of her long-dead mother working at a camp and 3 children that seem to be victims of none other than the Grabber, plagued by nightmares that led her to the basement where her brother was kept hostage. They both decide to make a trip to the old camp she saw in her visions, to find out that the Grabber spirit has risen to claim them. Each time he appears, it's especially Gwen who this time has to deal close and personal with him, as he somehow gains access through her visions to the real world. Usually I find stuff like The Exorcist kind of lame, but BlackPhone doesn't give the same vibe at all. I would rather compare to Ringu, where the protagonists are actively trying to find the source of the curse in hopes of ending it before time runs up for them. Exchange the curse for dying in 7 days to dying at any time. When Gwen got tortured and nearly killed every time the Grabber came for her, I genuinely was sitting in my seat rooting for Gwen to get out somehow, which is pretty much the key feature of a good horror movie, to make me care about the main characters, so it's terrifying when something happens to them. Yeah, what can I say? I do hope the sequel will be successful. The Grabber has pretty much already appeared in other media, and it made the unthinkable. Get me to like a movie where that may have been one of these. Therefore, you cannot tell how much I want BlackPhone to become a name in the Museum of Horror. And now, I have an idea on how we can make it work. The Grabber is a tall killer with a 32-meter terror radius, walking at 4.6 meters per second, and wields the Grabber's axe as his primary weapon. I haven't found anything on what to call the axe. Let's leave it like that. His power will be called Calls from the Dead. The Grabber spawns with 7 BlackPhones across the map and is undetectable as well as invisible towards survivors. There will always be one survivor, either healthy or injured, who can still see the Grabber and hear his terror radius. They will also hear the phones ringing when being near one. This survivor is marked as the Grabber's victim. If the Grabber's victim picks up a phone, he will lose the undetectable status and become visible to all survivors for a 15-second duration, and his aura is revealed to the Grabber's victim in white. Someone else will then become the victim after the Grabber becomes invisible again. When first looking in the direction of the Grabber whilst he is invisible, the survivor sees a shimmer of the Grabber silhouette for 1 second. Note, hooked and survivors put in the dying state can also fully see the Grabber as well as hear his terror radius. Should the Grabber begin chasing a different survivor, they become the victim. Someone else will also become the victim if the Grabber downs the survivor who previously was the victim. Passive gain of stealth had to be included since I was solely going off the Grabber from the BlackPhone 2. You'd still be able to see him coming and hide if you're careful due to the visual cue if no one picks up the phone. Though I wouldn't call him in a similar way a stealth killer to Ghostface, for example. Not just because Ghostface's stealth is an active ability, but due to the entire playstyle being different, which I'll further explore with the Grabber's active power. Press the active power button to create an area of freezing ice beneath the Grabber. He'll slide and increase in move speed moving on the ice. The ice field reaches upon 40 meters and stays for around 12 seconds, and the Grabber can for the duration re-enter the ice field to slide on. This action has a cooldown of 20 seconds once the ice field's duration has ended. I don't want to spoil too much, but it's in the trailers already. Seeing him causing havoc on the ice just would have made for a pretty awesome chase ability. Imagine seeing the ice pop up to hear the sliding sounds building up momentum, and all that without a terror radius. And of course, perks. This time you can instead look at them yourselves if you want. Flare on the wrist. Okay, I had to redo this part because the perk, I knew it and still just left it as it is. It was incentivizing tunneling. And now that I pushed the video back to a later release, I went over it once more. And now it doesn't incentivize tunneling anymore, it just incentivizes people to not heal under the hook. Know your victims. The grabber sometimes just wants to look at his victim for some twisted reason. And his last perk, Scourge Hook, planned for entombment. The grave is set and there's no one coming in between. What do you think of my idea of the grabber and DBD? If you made it this far though, you might want to subscribe and share the video, as it helps me fight against the algorithm and gets me as a creator with no reach to have at least some reach. Don't leave now, because we have to discuss Finny and Gwen as potential survivors. As I said, in the first movie, they were children. Now in the sequel, they've aged up, still teenagers, but what if we are playing the time a little further and got them when they hit adulthood into the trials? Maybe the entity had them on their watch after the conclusion of BlackPhone 2 and was waiting for the right moment to take them in. What if? Finny's perks are Burning for Payback, a perk based on his hatred. Sure, we cannot kick the killer in the nuts, but the bonus should be scary enough to make the killer feel pressured by your actions. Strict Follower, due to his time in the basement following the instructions of the children that gave him advice over the BlackPhone, Finny might be able to follow the steps others left behind unfinished to fulfill what needs to be done. And Light in the Abyss, on the one hand, symbolizing the single window that was giving him an image of hope for escape. On the other hand, it's supposed to show him just different opportunities. And now Gwen. As I said, she was pretty much the protagonist in the BlackPhone 2. At least to me, we got to include both as survivors separately. Face the Storm, a perk that tells her to go back into the battle, as she was the one who got herself and her brother into the situation they got stuck in. Yet, it was Gwen who pushed through. Invocation, Visions from the Beyond. Something resembling her vision reading abilities had to be included, and the invocation was just the right tool for that. Gwen went to a resting place to let her visions play out and gather information about the grabber's victims. The hooks serve as the anchor on which souls have been sacrificed, on which she is able to gather her clues to defeat the killer, but with the price of endangering herself. And for the last perk, Mental Blockage, an aura blocking perk resembling the moment when she realized that it was her who's in control, not letting the grabber get anywhere near her and fighting back the evil in her mind. So, that concludes my road to the BlackPhone 1 and 2 and how it could be done in DBD. I really hope with the second part that the grabber gets more talk under the community to make his debut. I still cannot get over the fact that Fortnite out of all got him before behavior. The same I have to say about Terrifier. Like, behavior, what are you waiting for? That's it for me, and don't get lost.